Hi guys, I'm Natalie Bond. You're listening to It's All Light. Today I'm excited. We have a new guest. Her name is Mckenna Lovelace. And are you from Idaho?
I'm not. I'm actually from
Oh,
Missouri.
she's from Missouri, but goes to school at
Yeah.
BYU, Idaho. And we met because she actually has her own podcast, Kenna's Corner. And I have been following along, listening to her podcast. And there's just so many fun things that I'm excited to dive into. So, Kenna, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah. So you said it. I go to BYU, Idaho. I'm studying communication with
Nice.
an emphasis in video production and strategic organization, which is kind of like
Cool.
HR type
Yeah.
stuff. I love to dance. I know a little bit of clogging and
Whoa.
country swing. So kind of random, but
Wow, we're very
I enjoy.
similar. I studied communications and I love country dancing.
No way.
Literally went dancing last night. My favorite
Okay.
thing.
We'd
Um,
have to
but
go
yeah,
a little
I
closer.
I know. And Idaho's so fun. My boyfriend went to BYU Idaho, and a lot of
Oh,
good friends too.
yeah.
But yeah, communications is great. You can do so much with that. I love that you're doing video too. That is so cool. You make the
Yeah.
cutest reels, and I hope everyone goes and looks at your Instagram, Kenna's Corner, because it's
Yeah.
just so fun to see her use the content and helpful things about life. So, what else? Tell us more about yourself.
What else? I'm engaged, so planning a wedding right now, which is exciting and
So fun.
scary. It's
When's your wedding?
June 2nd.
June 2nd. Oh, that's
Mhm.
awesome. Okay, so we'll continue to get to know you, but we'll pause right here since you said that.
Yeah.
What do you feel like got you to this point to get
Like,
married?
okay, being engaged and stuff.
Yeah.
That is a really good question, actually, because I think I have grown so much to get to this point. Just because, like, I don't know, I'll just kind of overhear a little girl talk gossip,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's my roommates or just people on campus. And I'm like, man, I'm so glad that I am not in that stage of life.
And I think everyone just can't wait to get there in a way, you know?
Yeah, yeah, but I think you do have to just live through the dating game, right? And it is kind of a game because you win and you lose.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I think what got me to this point is honestly working on myself, which is kind of cheesy, and I feel like a lot of people say that, but I had to figure out my own confidence first
Mm-hmm.
to finally be okay letting someone in my life in a healthy way because
Yeah.
I was kind of a chaser and I just wanted boys to like me so badly, but they I think could sense that there was a lack of confidence in myself, and
Mm,
so it
yeah.
definitely probably affected the relationship because I was willing to pretty much do whatever it took to get them to like me.
Be the
And
cool girl.
yeah, like just I don't know, and I would take on their hobbies and things like that. But once
Mm,
I finally realized that I can just be myself and someone will like me for that,
yeah.
then it changed everything and finally met someone that does like me for me.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. And then what kind of led to that point where you realized you wanted to marry him?
The way he treated me for sure.
Mm.
And um I don't know if we talk about like religion on
Yeah.
here,
No,
but
yeah, for sure.
yeah, definitely his devotion to God as well.
Mm,
That they were both there,
yeah.
and the way he treated me definitely reflected his character.
That's cool. And
Okay, he's different.
and how have you built your guys' relationship? Like what are some fundamentals that you could share with people? Because I know a lot of people are exploring this and trying to get to the point where they can find someone to marry and get married. So what would you have to say about that?
Just talk to each other. I think that too often people don't like. I don't know. Friends will come to me and they're like, "Okay, this is happening in my relationship," and I'm like, "Why are you telling me? Tell
Mm.
him. This doesn't involve me.
Yeah,
This is
yeah.
between you and your significant other."
I think
So
that's powerful advice.
yeah, if you just talk to each other, it's the conversation is never as bad as you think it'll be. So if
Hmm.
you just bring it up, and there's a right way to go about bringing up concerns and
Totally.
needs, you just put it on yourself. Say, this is how I've been feeling. How can we fix it? Or I need help. Can you help me with these things?
Right, which big hint, this is going to be our main topic for today, and I'm so excited to learn from McKenna. But before we dive deeper into this, because I have so many questions,
Yeah.
Tell us more about what you light up about. So you mentioned just your major and like some of your
Mhm.
hobbies, but I want to just dig a little deeper into what energy you're putting into it for your life.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of things. I definitely go through these little phases of like I'm really into something or I go through a life experience and so that's kind of my passion for the moment and I love to
Mm-hmm.
like share that. So it's definitely changed throughout my life, but something that's been consistent is like healthy communication, kind of like we've mentioned,
Mm-hmm.
that there is right ways to go about communicating. There's lots of right ways, but there's many wrong ways that are common that people do.
Mm-hmm.
And also within a relationship, I think that you can communicate in a healthy way within a relationship to keep it healthy and make it last.
Mm, yeah. Well, and my bishop said like marriage is just one big conversation, one long conversation,
Yeah,
like your whole life. And I'm like, oh,
yeah,
that's kind of true. I mean, you'll have to talk about everything. I mean, you think about any of your best friends, and I think one of the aspects of a best friendship is that you can talk about anything and for hours. In
yeah,
addition to you can sit in silence for hours and nothing's weird about that. Like
yeah.
and body language, like so many forms of communication,
Mhm.
silence, even, like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I've just, with family members and with partnerships and dating and even in work, how you communicate.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's, I mean, my eye has been open this week in literally every area with
Yeah.
with someone I'm dating, with my team leaders at work. Like this has been a very
Mhm.
intense week, and I've
Mhm.
I've been open to seeing my flaws in communication, and I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, great. Like what do I do from here and how do I not let this like burden me?" But yeah.
Yeah.
So, do you feel like you've always like loved communication like from a young age? Do you feel like you were pretty good at communicating, or what kind of spurred this passion?
That's a good question. Can I tell a story actually?
Please.
So when I was in middle school, I would say I haven't always liked communication. I think it's been really hard for me to confront people about issues, and it was just the end of the world. But I remember just probably a few occasions, but one in particular, I had this PE teacher that was just so mean. She
Hmm.
was awful, and everyone knew it.
We all
And
had that
we
PE
had
teacher.
yes, she was horrible. And like as a little middle schooler, that was just so insecure. Like she did not help my self esteem. But there was this program they would do called 100% Club. And if you turned in all of your homework, so 100% of your homework, you could go to this party at the end of the year.
Mm.
And for PE, we didn't really have homework, but you had to bring gym clothes. That was like our grade. And
Mm.
you'd get points off if you forgot your gym clothes. So I always brought my gym clothes. And if I forgot it, I would call my mom and have her bring them to me before PE so that I would, get 100% of my homework done. So we had to get signatures from each teacher to prove that we did turn in all the homework and then we'd turn it into the office and then we'd get to go to this party. So I got all of my signatures from my teachers except for this PE teacher because she claimed that I did not bring my gym clothes every day. And I was like, I know that I did. And
Oh
instead
my
of
gosh.
talking to her about it, like, why didn't I just go up to her and say, like, I'm confident that I brought my gym clothes every day. Can you help me understand why you feel like I didn't? Like, do you have a list or something, like
Yeah.
communicated to her? No, I didn't
And
do
that's
that.
so scary, especially like middle school. You're just so many things are so
Yes.
scary.
And I just went home and cried about it,
Mm.
and it was like not even that big of a deal. It's like a little party that the school does.
That's
It ended up
awesome.
working out because instead of confronting her, I confronted her superior and went to the office about it. But still, like, I think
Which in a way that
communication,
felt safer, right?
yes, it felt safer. But I think I've gotten a lot better at communication. And even just today or last night, so my fiance, he works at Walmart right now, and there was like a scheduling error, and it's happened a few times, so it was kind of frustrating.
Mm.
And so he was mad, and like I was mad because I've also worked for Walmart, so I'm like, no, that's not how it should be. So we like wrote out this thing that he could go talk to his team lead about.
Mhm.
And it was funny because he like rehearsed it with me before he went to work. And yeah, it was just funny that when he said it, I'm like, man, spoken like a true communicator, like it's really not a big deal, but I think a lot of problems can be solved. And yeah, if you just be straight up and communicate your feelings.
Mhm.
And it
Yeah.
all worked out, so we're
Good. Yeah,
good.
I mean there's so many different forms of communication, right? I mean,
Mhm.
from expressing ideas to questions to confrontation. And I think like you titled this like healthy communication, and
Mhm.
I feel like that, and maybe I'm wrong, translates more into those hard conversations and how to make those healthy. But I
Mhm.
think even in just like me and the boy I'm dating, me and the boy
Yeah.
we're dating, haha, no, me and the boy I'm dating. I had a conversation yesterday. We were on a run, and I just started bringing up all these things, and then I started like to have to check myself because I'm like, why am I saying all this like so harshly, you know? And I'm like,
Yeah.
I need to be thinking more about like how he's feeling and how he's
Mhm.
interpreting what I'm saying instead of just saying what I think I should say, you
Yeah.
know, because my mind is super impulsive and I just want to say what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But it's the next level, and that what I'm trying to learn is if I'm thinking about how they're taking what I'm saying, then it'll be communicated more effectively.
Yeah. And I think I'm the opposite is I don't say how I feel, and I'm constantly having to force myself to be like, yeah,
Mm.
just be open about how you're feeling, be more direct. So there's like such a balance.
Mm.
And
Sometimes I'm too direct, and I'm
yeah,
like, I
some
have
people are
to.
too direct, some people are never direct
It
enough. So
bites me back though. It's like I could have been so much more effective if I had just like paused and thought about what I said before I said it,
yeah.
and yeah, just thinking about how they take things.
Hmm.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah.
know.
And I think especially men and women communicate differently, and
Mhm.
understanding that and realizing that doesn't make it bad communication. It's just different than you.
Yeah. So what else have you learned with healthy communication, and like elements you would say that can help people learn how to communicate healthily?
Well, going back to kind of the way I communicate, that I'm a little more indirect. I'm a big people pleaser, and this has been a struggle for my whole life, pretty much.
Mm.
I never want to disappoint anyone, so I never want to confront or be direct in how I feel. But I think it's really important to like your feelings are important.
Mhm.
Yes, you want to be compassionate and loving and help other people feel happy, but if it's to your loss, then that's not
Yeah.
necessarily
People
right, you know?
pleasing, yeah.
Yeah, so it's important to express the way that you feel. And I think a big element that I've been trying to use, and we kind of mentioned it, but using I statements instead of you statements. And this goes with both when you are direct or if you're indirect, that I can say things like, I feel sad when you don't respond to my text. I don't know what the situation is,
Mhm.
but focusing it on yourself is a really good way to communicate healthily, if that's a word.
Mhm. Yeah.
uh, because then when you go to someone and you're like, okay, you never respond to my text and you do this and you do this, always pointing it at the other person, they're automatically
Mhm.
going to put this wall up and just be
Defensive.
defensive. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Mhm.
it's important to use I statements so
Mhm.
that they see that you're coming at them with these
Feelings.
feelings and struggles because you feel sad or whatever the feeling is,
Yeah.
not because they're a horrible person.
Yeah, and I feel like at least I'm assuming everybody has been in a situation where someone's saying you did this or you did that. Probably most likely with your siblings. I feel like
Yeah.
that's the number one. Or sometimes parents, which is hard too, you know, and
Mhm.
when that is pointed out to you, right? But
Mhm.
at the same time, like as we learn and grow, it is helpful to get those hard things pointed out to us because we can be blinded by just how we do things and thinking we're right. And I mean, I think at least once a week I go through something like this and I'm like, oh yeah, crap. Like, okay, I'm glad I'm more aware of that now, even though it's
Mhm.
hard to hear.
Yeah.
And And yeah, those conversations are scary because you're like, crap, I've made mistakes. Or I don't know
Mhm.
what it is about like feeling that you are right or perfect. Like, and then people pleasing goes along with that too. You just kind
Yeah.
of like, you feel like it's problem solving when it's like not actually helping you.
Yeah, exactly.
But I don't know. What do you think helps you when you're in a scenario and you want to use you statements? What helps you like get back to, okay, wait, how can I make this healthy?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think with my fiance, if we ever kind of have a disagreement or an argument, sometimes I've said like, I'm not in the right frame of mind to have this conversation right now. Like, I know that I'm feeling really grumpy, whether it's because I'm hungry or tired. Usually tired. I get a little cranky when I'm tired. So I'll say, how about we just go to sleep and we'll talk about this tomorrow? Or how
Mm-hmm.
about we eat first and then we can talk?
Yes.
Because I need to cool down first. Because I
Mm-hmm.
know the things I say are going to be like blown out of proportion unless
Right.
I can calm down. So I think it's totally fine to give yourself a second before you
Mm-hmm.
jump right into the
Yeah. And
confrontation.
that is something I've tried to work on too. And my dad, he jokes and says, like, people say, don't go to bed angry, in a marriage. But
Hmm.
he's like, go to bed angry. You'll wake up and forget why you were even angry.
Yeah.
Like there's power in both of them,
Yeah.
like sometimes even if you just like roll over and go to sleep on the other side, like things will be better in the morning.
Yes.
And they usually are. And so many little things affect us. And
Hmm.
that's part of life. It's learning how to deal with those. I mean, I think
Yeah.
as a girl too, it's easy to be like, oh yeah, I was crazy because of my hormones. Like it was that time of the
Yes.
month, or
That's usually the reason.
and and my mom's like, that's never gonna go away. She's like, you
Hmm.
just need to learn to deal with it and make it work for you. Like
Yeah.
stop blaming that, because you still have control over how you think and feel and react and
Hmm.
communicate.
Yeah.
But I'm still always reassured when I've like had a crazy week and then I like
You're like, oh,
realize where I'm at, then I'm like, oh yeah, yeah, it all makes
that's
sense now. Like
yeah. It is
as
comforting.
expecting as it is every month, it's still so unexpected, and I'm like, why am I feeling all this? Why am I
Yes.
crying every minute? Like,
Literally
yeah.
every month. Oh my gosh.
And I'm
Haven't
still
we
not
figured it
used to
out by
it.
now? Yeah.
But yeah, I think taking that into consideration, and then like those other elements, like you said, sleeping and eating and
Mhm.
breathing, and our world is so much more full of anxiety, which is so hard. But it's just like, I think our world has always been full of anxiety. Now people are actually talking about it, so it seems like there's more of it. But
Mhm.
now, like, we're starting to dive in how we can overcome it and deal with it and live with it, because sometimes it won't go away. But
Mhm.
I don't know, I think hard conversations bring a lot of anxiety depending who and what you're talking about.
Yeah.
But I don't know, what do you feel like going into a hard conversation? Do you feel like you focus on like, okay, what's the end goal or the outcome, or
Mhm.
is it more the journey of the conversation? What do you feel about that?
Hmm. It might depend on the conversation, but I think ultimately I want a problem to be solved by the
Mm,
end. So I do kind of keep that in mind, but maybe I don't know how to get there.
mm,
So it is kind of like just the journey of the conversation. And it is really cool how sometimes you're having that conversation. I usually just think about conversations I've had with my fiance when I don't know, sometimes if it's not someone close to me, I'm like, it's not even really worth it to have a conversation. But when I am like, okay, yes, I'm gonna be with him for eternity, so we need to figure this out. I think it's really cool because we do figure things out as the conversation goes.
mm-hmm.
And it's just like each of us expressing our side, expressing our feelings, and then figuring it out together. It is nice when
Mm-hmm.
both people want the end goal to be a solution
Right, right.
because
Well,
I think we really can get there.
or even starting the conversation with that, be like, okay, like why do we need to talk about this? Why are we
Mm-hmm.
talking about this? And then what, the therefore what, what does this
Yeah.
mean for us? The
Mm-hmm.
conversation I had yesterday is just kind of like how we live our lives and how we've been raised and what that
Mm-hmm.
looks like. and
Yeah.
and okay, is that what I want? And how, like, even if it's different than what I expect or what I
Mm-hmm.
have expected, it might not affect my future as much as I think it is,
Yeah.
and that's something I'm going through right now too, is like, what are my expectations and how do I communicate those? But also, sometimes in those conversations, my expectations can shift and I can realize, oh, it's not what I thought it would look like and it's
Mhm.
different, but that doesn't change the ultimate goal.
Yeah,
Hmm.
definitely.
Do you feel like your communication with your family has, like your siblings or your parents, has been pretty healthy and then that's been able to transfer to your romantic relationship?
I think maybe a mission helped me
Mm.
get better at communicating and
Mm.
then also studying communication.
Right.
So I think even within my family, I struggled with either people pleasing or just not being direct about how I feel.
Mm-hmm.
But there have been times, like I remember I have a younger sister and she's 18 right now. But when I was about 17, 18, I remember having a conversation with my mom, a little bit frustrated with her, and my sister just watched. And, I'm in tears, like, talking to my mom, trying to confront her about something. And then I'm like, sorry, Jenna, that you have to sit through this. She's like, no, I'm actually learning. She she loved being able to see how me and my mom worked out a conflict.
Mm.
And I think that my communications gotten better, and same with everyone in my family. Just as the years go by, we
Mm-hmm.
want things to be peaceful in our home, so we
Yeah.
work things out,
Mm-hmm.
and it's been good. It's not always easy, but it's important to work those things out.
Yeah, I can relate. I've watched my sister talk to my mom about things, and I'm sure my little sister has watched me,
Mhm.
and there have definitely been hard things that, I mean, now some are somewhat taboo, and like we
Yeah.
just know talking about it isn't isn't fun or great, and sometimes it's like, even with therapy, it's like, okay, do I need to bring this back up with my
Mhm.
family, or do I
Yeah.
just let it go in the past? And it's a hard balance because some things you need to go into in the past just to clear it up and move
Mhm.
forward
Yeah.
stronger. But I feel like at the same time, some things are like, okay, that doesn't matter now. Like, leave it
Mhm.
there, move on,
Yeah.
and it's been interesting. I've had to have hard conversations, and I had different coaches and stuff that I like. A hard conversation with my sister, I would like be like, okay, let's just talk soon. And then I would call my coach and she would like walk me through my thought process and like, oh,
Mhm.
this is probably how your sister's feeling. I'm like, oh, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah.
And then I would call my sister back. She's like, you just talked to your coach. And I'm like, yeah, like, and then our conversation was so much better. And
Mhm.
in the end, these hard conversations can bring you closer.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. I think there's something about your relationship, whether it's with family or a friend or a significant other, that after you get through that hard conversation, you really are closer and more
Yeah.
connected.
Yeah. I mean, I've had conversations that you feel like you're about to break up, but then
Yeah.
like the next day you're like closer than ever and you're like
Mhm.
that's a little ironic, like
Yeah.
but it's because you're just being open and honest, right? And
Mhm.
that
Yeah.
vulnerability draws connection, and Brené Brown talks all about that. But
Yeah.
okay, I have another question for you. Unless you have any other thoughts.
No.
Okay, so this is like kind of a whole nother branch of
Yeah.
communication. But for me, I like value like being intellectually stimulated and having deep conversations,
Ooh.
and the conversations a form of communicating. But I want to
Mhm.
ask you, in your relationship, like, has it been always natural to just talk about anything and everything? And how have you built that in your relationship?
Ooh, good one. My fiance is actually an introvert
Mm,
and I'm an extrovert. I'm kind of like both, but I think I lean more towards extrovert.
yeah.
And so in the beginning, actually, that was a little bit of a concern for us because I would just want to talk and talk or go out and do these fun things. And sometimes he just needs alone time.
Mm,
And I'm like, what? How could you need alone time? Like, I could spend every single second with you and be completely fine. And he's like, well, I can be more energetic with you if I can have some time to also decompress and
mm,
process my feelings and different things like that. So we've definitely had to work on balancing each other's
mm-hmm.
needs as far as how we communicate
Yeah.
goes. And so sometimes I'm like, yeah, I do want to have this really deep conversation, but maybe he just got home from work and he's exhausted, or he just did
Mm-hmm.
like 4 hours of homework, and he's exhausted. And so although he wants to have this conversation with me and
Mhm.
fill my needs, he's just not there. He's not
Yeah.
mentally there. So it's important to respect each other's needs. So he'll get his alone time or whatever and kind of
Mhm.
decompress, and then he's ready to have these conversations. And
Mhm.
we are very different still, but I think that we still can support each other in the types of conversations and stimulate each other in the conversations.
Right. And I think as you were saying that, I could just by your body language and your mannerisms, I could tell that like you can still get your outlets and be you and
Mhm.
like tell someone about your day. And if it's not that time for him, like if he's tired from work, like you can
Mhm.
still do that maybe the next day, but like you could still have your outlet and call a
Yeah.
friend. Like we have
Yeah.
so many friends and support systems that can fill different needs. Obviously in a relationship and in a marriage, like you and your significant other will like fulfill each other's needs, but like it's not end all be all that they have to do it all. Like you can reach out
Yeah.
to a friend who loves to listen and any time of the day and tell them about your day, or like go out with your girlfriends, like go out with
Mhm.
friends if and that's I think people can understand that that's okay. Like
Yeah.
to I don't know, for yeah, sorry, I'm like rambling a little bit, but there's just
No, it is
certain
true.
areas in your life that you don't necessarily need to rely, like the codependency, right? But also
Mhm.
just knowing what their needs are too. Like you can give him that time and then he also knows that you want to share things or whatever and he can do that for you too. So it's
Yes.
communicating that though, right? I think that's the
Yeah.
key.
Yeah, we've had to talk about that specifically, and that's totally fine. Talk about whatever you need to.
Mhm.
With some couples, maybe it comes naturally, and I see on social media a lot and feel the slight pressure that, oh, my some boyfriends are really good at girl
Posting
talk.
about the
Like they
girls
love,
too.
yeah, yeah.
Which
Like,
is so funny, but yeah, girl
yeah,
talk. Yeah, some guys are great at that.
yeah. And like my fiance would prefer that we not have girl talk because he just can't relate. So I'm like, that
Mhm.
makes sense because you're not a girl. So let me follow someone else who
Right.
does care about this
Well, and even if
conversation.
a guy's good at girl talk, like that still it can be a manly thing.
Yeah.
Um, I was looking at your one of your latest podcast episodes, and it was McKenna's mini, and you said that your fiance and you communicate a little bit differently. And is that kind of what you were just sharing with us, or what could you tell us more about that?
Yeah, in that episode, I shared a story. So there's one day we kind of talked about it, but we can support it with this story. So we were on the elevator from his apartment, and like there's just the unwritten rule, unspoken rule that whoever's in the elevator gets off first before anyone enters the elevator, right? So we I can't remember where we were going now. Maybe hot tubbing or something, but he forgot his towel. So he had already like gone all the way down to the first floor. He forgot his towel. We had to go back up to the fourth floor so he could go get the towel. And so he's already like a little bit flustered and annoyed that we had to go all the way back. And we were going back down the elevator and people were trying to get on before we got off. And he said something like in passing to that group of people that embarrassed me a little bit. I'm like, why would you say that? Saying like we're supposed to get off first. And so I said something to him like, I think there's a better way for you to communicate that because I'm Miss
Mm.
Communication major. I know the perfect way to communicate. And so we kind of got in this little disagreement, and we ended up talking. Like I didn't need to say there was a better way for you to do that. I didn't need to get involved. It was
Mm.
just in passing a comment. He was already kind of grumpy, and
Yeah.
I could have just waited a little bit when he cooled down, and then we could have had a conversation if I really
Mhm.
felt like
It
that was
was
going to be a
yeah.
recurring problem. But I think it was just kind of an in the moment thing.
Yeah, yeah. And
So
most communication like this is in the moment, like
yeah.
that's just something we have to learn how to
Hmm.
handle and deal with.
Yeah.
Okay, keep going.
And yeah, so we had a conversation. I explained what I would have done, not that it's the right way, but because I'm so
Mm.
indirect, I probably would have done like a dramatic body language, like they're trying to get on the elevator, and I would look so super surprised and like jump back a little bit, like, oh my gosh, communicating. Why would you get on the elevator? Gotten off, so indirect, and he
Yeah.
probably wouldn't have even realized that that's what I
What you
was.
were trying to do.
Yes. And then his was very direct, maybe too direct. So
Mm.
there's different ways to communicate. They're not necessarily right or wrong,
Yeah.
but I think showing kindness, which can be difficult whenever you are hungry or frustrated, like we talked
Mhm.
about. But yeah, a lot of things are just in the moment and you can just brush it off too.
Yeah. It's interesting. You said frustration that just kind of spurred in me. Like, there's so many times where like you're in a conversation and one thing that could be said could flip a switch. And for me, sometimes I just like get quiet, and I'm not normally a quiet person.
Hmm.
So like even in high school, like I remember skiing with my guy friends, and I don't even remember what was said, but I just remember sitting there on the ski lift just absolutely silent.
Yeah.
And then my friends were like, okay, Natalie's not talking, like what's wrong?
Hmm.
Or like, what did we do? And I was like,
Yeah.
that's so funny that they immediately knew because I wasn't talking that something was wrong, or
Yeah.
like different arguments, like one thing could be said and that flips the whole course, and I just sit there like really feeling like I don't have anything to say.
Hmm.
And but I'm so lucky, like my brain, just because it moves so fast, I usually don't hold grudges and I can get over it after a period of time. And
Yeah.
so then like 10 minutes later I'm like happy go lucky again,
Fine. Yeah.
but I think sometimes it's just like processing those things. And then something I've learned with communication is just asking someone, what do they mean?
Yeah.
Because everyone has their different perceptions on what they place on everything that means something, So saying one thing, I mean, like your body language, you think that means something, but like who knows how other people can interpret that, because everyone has their own perceptions on what anything in life means, right? So
Yeah.
then if someone says something, you just be like, oh, like, what do you mean by that? Like, if someone tells me, I can't even think of an example on the spot, but just any comment like, oh, you should do something differently, or
Mhm.
oh, like, oh, do you want to do this differently? Like, oh, what do you mean by that? Like, where are they
Yeah.
coming from? Because we all
Mhm.
think certain things are right because of how we were raised, and doing things a
Yeah.
certain way are right. And if you like express that to someone, it could come across of like, what? Why would I do that? Or why do I need to think about that? Because they don't know what you're meaning. And so just
Yeah.
asking what people mean. I don't know.
Yeah. I
Communication is fun. There's so
It
much.
is fun. Yeah, and it made me think of, like, I hear friends or roommates, they're like, "Oh, he texted me this. He must
mm.
mean this." I'm like, "You
Mm.
have no idea what he means." You can't
Well,
tell through text,
and
so
even texting too as a form of communication. My
yeah.
producer, as I was telling him what we're going to talk about today, it was like I was like, yeah, we're going to talk about communication and healthy forms, and he goes, oh, like between Snapchat and texting or DMing. I'm like, right, and he was kidding, but like
Yeah.
there's so many forms of communication,
Mhm.
and I think everyone can agree that like face to face communicating is like the best thing you can do, and like second best FaceTime, right? Like
Yeah.
because then you can read into emotions. And
Mhm.
I think for me, the biggest thing I need to remember in hard conversations is, am I wrong? Like, is what
Mhm.
I'm thinking and my agenda wrong?
Yeah.
Like, I think so easily we just believe things so much that we think it's right, right? When in
Mhm.
reality, it can be right in so many different ways if we just open our mind to it.
Yeah, definitely. I like how you said asking yourself too, like, what do they mean? And then also asking yourself, am I wrong? Like, it's good to have these positive conversations within yourself
Mm-hmm.
because that helps conversations go much better too.
Yeah. Thank you. So, wrapping up, what do you feel like is maybe one or two of your uplifting takeaways? Like, why should others care about this? I mean, hopefully, people listening to this episode have kind of pulled something out, but what would you say is like two of your most important things from this topic?
I think, yeah, the two things would be healthy communication, make sure that your needs are met, and healthy communication, make sure that other people's needs are met.
Mm. Do you think those have to go in your needs first, then their needs, or do you think you can discover your needs through serving their needs?
Ooh, it might just depend on the situation,
Mm-hmm.
but it's probably a good practice to make sure that you're in a good spot, that your
Right.
needs are met
Mm-hmm.
before you can help someone else. But you might be in a pretty good spot and then be helping someone else's needs, and in the
Yeah.
process, discovering more about you too.
Yeah. this week I learned kind of that hard lesson at work, meeting with my team leaders. They were talking about different things of what's working, what's not working, and
Mhm.
then just like encouraging me to continue to deep dive into my personal development, to know
Mhm.
what I'm good at, to know where I can be helpful. Because
Mhm.
sometimes like through college and things, I'm like, yeah, I'm good at this, I'm good at this, but then like actually put
Yeah.
in it, maybe I'm not so good at that. And
Yeah.
they're seeing that, and so they're like, okay, let's have you figure it out. So what's the work
Mhm.
I need to put in for myself to know what
Mhm.
I'm good at, because then I'll be able to be helpful and communicate
Yeah.
that to others in a helpful way. Like I'm like, how have I not learned this yet? Like in this work meeting, I'm
Mhm.
like, oh, I can't believe I made all those mistakes, not thinking about how I was communicating, as well as like knowing about myself and what I'm good at. So
Mhm.
I love that you said that. Okay, and what would you say the second thing is? Or
Oh, those
was,
were mine
oh,
too.
just the needs
Yeah.
of others.
So
Okay. That was
yourself and then
one.
others.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I love that. Focusing on the needs of others. I think that's probably my takeaway. It's like I need to develop myself, but also like I think a rule even as I'm developing myself is just asking, okay, what's this other person feeling and thinking from
Mhm.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because I don't know, just focusing on others makes life so much better.
Yeah, and I think in a relationship, it's important to regularly ask how you can be better or
Mm,
what are your needs and how can I better meet them, you know?
comp inventory, right?
Yeah, comp inventory. We actually do that like every other week.
I love that. I've heard of a lot of couples doing that. That's been something
Yeah.
on my list that I'm glad we've talked about, because I'm like, oh yeah, I do want to do that. And
Yeah.
my coworker even sent me like a list of 80 questions that he kind of started like from like his church leaders. They gave him
Mhm.
some, then he added some, then his siblings and sisters, they've added questions, and then he sent them to me, and I'm like reviewing them. I'm like, oh, these are awesome. And then my other
Ooh.
friend from like a first date we went on like years and years ago, he like printed
Mhm.
off these two pieces of papers with these questions, and like we switched and had to answer them as if we were the other person, or like see if we knew them. This was
Oh
a
yeah.
first date, which was a little hard because I'm like, I don't know this guy at all,
Uh,
you know, which was still kind of fun because you could just like, what's your impression of them. But
Mhm.
now I asked him to send me that document so I can go through it with the person I'm dating. And I just think like that's like you can have 1,000 conversations and so many topics,
Mhm.
even in Parks and Rec. I've been watching it again.
Yeah.
And it's when Ann Perkins is helping Leslie Knope like overcome her fear of her first date.
Oh
And
my
she
gosh.
has these
I love
note
that one.
cards. And I'm like, these are the topics I thought of like if we need something to talk about. And it was like
They're like so weird.
electricity, roller coaster, like just so funny. And then they were blank. She's like, that's all I could think about. Like conversations can really be anything. And I
Yeah.
think for me, I've been focusing on like, oh, who can I talk to naturally for hours, and do I have that
Mhm.
aspect in my relationships, and what does that look like? And the more I like dive into what that means, the more I've been able to develop it, and like
Mhm.
communication and those deep conversations can be developed even if that's not like initially someone's innate response, right?
Mhm.
Anyways, sorry, I just shared a bunch of thoughts. Do you have any last words or like other things you've been thinking as I've talked?
Um, I don't know. I do love Parks and Rec and The Office and all that because I think they actually teach about communication in a funny way
Oh, totally.
because they're like so bad at it. And
Mm-hmm.
I've been watching The Office
I
all the
love
way
The
through.
Office.
And if you know, like the later seasons when, what's his name? Robert California, I think, is the CEO. And he's just so bad at communicating. And
Mm.
he can't fire people when they deserve to be, just like goes around it, always finds a way around having a conversation that needs to happen. But I think it's funny because it teaches us that yes, that's how we all feel. None of us want to have difficult conversations,
Mm-hmm.
but
Totally.
they're so necessary and things would be a lot easier if we just did.
Right. And connections built when you do have those hard conversations. So,
Hmm. Yeah.
oh, thank you. I feel like I learned so much today. It was
Me
so fun to get
too.
to know you. Everyone, check out Kenna's Corner, fun little podcast. And I just kind of want to end. What spurred you to start your podcast? And we'll
Oh
end
yeah.
there.
Yeah. I thought that I was a dating expert, and so I was going to write a book for guys about how to win a
Ooh.
girl's heart. That was my original plan. then I realized that there really isn't a set way to do that.
Wait, I'm curious. I think you should still. I'd read it.
So I still do it. Yeah, I'll try to figure out some steps,
That's
but
awesome.
yeah, then I'm like, okay, maybe not a book, and I felt like guys wouldn't really buy a dating book. So I'm like, well, maybe I can open it up a little bit and make it just a podcast. And
Mm,
just, I was meeting lots of people being in college with cool stories, like someone with Tourette syndrome, or
mm.
someone that's a up and coming country singer, or an
Ooh,
author, so
yeah.
I started out just interviewing people with cool stories, and then people really liked the dating episodes that I did
I
sometimes.
can
So
relate. That's what
yeah.
people need right now.
So it kind of evolved to that, but now I'm kind of out of the dating life, so I've been trying to find kind of a new direction.
Your niche, yeah.
I always said my podcast would evolve as I evolve. So
Yeah,
yeah, just
it's true.
figuring it out now.
I think mine is too, as I'm learning more about like what does passion mean, and like
Hmm.
what do you light up about and how and why. Like there's so much to dive into. But I think we
Hmm.
need a follow-up episode on how to win a girl's heart, because that
Yeah.
is so awesome. I love that. I love that you've explored that. And I mean, you're engaged. I feel like anyone who feels like an expert in dating who's made it, like they do
Yeah.
have some valid things to share, because I mean, relationships take work, and like figuring out that, and for yourself. I mean, every story is different. So, but it's always, I feel like it's always good to hear and learn and from
Yeah.
others. So, thank you.
Thank
And
you.
we'll have to have you on again soon. Okay.
Yes.
Bye everyone. Have a great day. See ya.